Hey, good morning everyone. How's it going? So what am I working on now? Well, I got a 2014 Mazda CX-5. It's the SUV, like the midsize or whatever. Anyway, the customer dropped it off last night and they said I have a check engine light and when it's cold, it makes a noise when I start it. Okay. So I'm in it now. I hooked the scanner up. I brought it up to the trouble code screen. So let's see what actual trouble codes it has. So here, up to the trouble code screen, retrieve continuous memory DTCs. So this should be history DTCs, and there are no DTCs. Okay. So these are different tests that you could do. Key on engine off, on-demand self-test. Well, that's not going to show me anything right now. And then a key on engine running. Okay, well, I'm going to have to start it up to do that. All right, so now real quick, I just happened to notice 166,000 miles. And according to the sticker there, it's 100 and... I can't focus on it. Why can't I focus on it? There we go, 162,000. So, and it also says scheduled maintenance due, tire rotation due. So, let's start it up and see if this thing actually makes any noise. I haven't started it yet, so. Belt. You hear it? Chirp, 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 chirp. And then it goes away. Okay. But now, what I do see is I don't see a check engine light. However, I see a AFS off. I don't know what AFS is. There is a button here for it. See that? AFS off, and there's AFS off. Here, if I press it, it goes out. So when she says check engine light, maybe she was meaning that stuff there? I don't know. Let's get in the shop and let's check this thing out. Let's give it a good look over. Just see what, if anything, this thing needs. Because obviously it doesn't have any trouble codes. It's smooth. She could have had the oil changed. They just never changed the sticker or set the maintenance minder, which I see that all the time. Like shops just don't do it for some reason. But then again, some people do their own oil changes and they forget to reset it, or they just don't know how to reset it. So let's get in the shop, let's give it a look over. But judging by that noise from the belt, it's either going to need a belt or a belt and a tensioner. So, but it quieted down pretty quick, so I'm going to say it's probably going to be a belt. The belt might be just dried up. So let's get in the shop and let's take a look and see what's going on. So I figure in case you guys are wondering, let me show you what this does. The key on engine running self-test. What it'll do is it'll usually raise the idle and stuff like that. Mazda and Ford use the same computer and programming type stuff, so this is all Ford stuff. So, or it's Mazda stuff that Ford uses. I don't know, but it's all interconnected between Mazda and Ford. Because if you go into Ford, exact same stuff shows up. It's funny. I'm using my finger and I'm pointing to the scanner. I know you can't see me, but anyway. Let me just show you. I figure I may as well run through it. It takes a couple minutes, but let me show you. This scanner, I gotta say, I got the scanner a year ago, and I've been very, very happy with it, especially for the price point. This is the one that I've showed a lot of you, and a lot of you did wind up purchasing this, and it's a great scanner. I actually really like it, and it does everything my Snap-on scanner does at a fraction of the cost. All right, vehicle must be prepared for self-test. Ensure the following conditions are met. Vehicle is not moving. Shift to check mode. Whatever the heck that means. Make sure the HV battery. See, some of the stuff doesn't even apply to this. Engine coolant temperature is higher than 140 degrees, which by now it probably is. If engine coolant temperature is lower than this, blah, 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 blah. A false variable valve timing code could come up. I'm going to think it's probably over 140, but whatever. It's not. I know it doesn't have any codes. But here, okay, I didn't do that. It did that all on its own. But that's part of the self-test. Sometimes it'll tell you to cycle the overdrive switches. It'll tell you to turn the AC on and off, different things like that. So yeah, that's all done. Yeah, there are no DTCs, everything's normal. Okay, that's a good test. Like, if you have a check engine light and you want to, like, whatever code you have, and you want to say, will that happen? Like, is it a constant situation? Is it something that happens often? And then you go do that test. If the code reappears, well then yeah, you know it's something that's going to happen quickly. So you should be able to quickly diagnose. Should be able to easily diagnose, I should say, and quickly. All right, since there's no DTCs or anything, let's shut this down and then let's give this thing a complete look over. So up underneath the hood here, you can see that the belt is worn. Let me shine this light down there. You can see there's actually chunks missing out of that belt. You see them? Yeah, so you can get a very good shot on it. Yeah, there's actual chunks taken out of it. And then look how glossy the backside of the belt is. Alright, so we're definitely going to put a belt on this thing. But let's check the oil while we're here. So like I said, I don't know if the oil was changed and they just never changed the sticker. I have no idea. But now the motor's warmed up. It sat for a minute. The motor itself is pretty darn dirty too. Yeah, the oil looks good. I mean, it's not. It's dirty, but it's not filthy. Not like it's, you know, overdue for an oil change. So I'm good with that. All right, let's put this thing up in the air and let's give it a once over. We're up in the air now, and what I basically do is I take a look at all the tires, I give a visual of the brakes. If anything on the brakes is even remotely suspect, then I'll pull the wheels off. But if everything looks okay from like just a visual standpoint, then I usually leave it alone. They don't have a complaint with the brakes, so there's really no reason to pull the wheels off. Although I'm going to be recommending a tire rotation. I'll explain why. Now if you look at the front tires, you can see the edge is starting to go away on it a little bit. I mean, it's not terrible, but you can definitely see wear on the edge of the tires. But if you come to the backs are still pretty darn good. See that? Nowhere near as bad as the fronts. So, and the fronts aren't even bad. It's just, you know, you rotate them now and you save yourself some aggravation down the road from just wearing out a pair of tires. So, what do? I usually will just look at brakes visually. Now, this is an up north vehicle, I can tell by the rust on it, but I could see that there's still life left on the pads. They're getting close in the back. You can see the pad up inside there. But just because I've done this for so many years, I kind of know where stuff is in terms of wear. So this is like not even of concern yet for me. Let's go here. It's getting close. Like maybe next oil change is going to need brakes. Yeah, the front's got plenty of meat left on them. Yeah, they're fine. Now I do see a little bit of oil here on this pan. See this? But I see this right here. And honestly, this looks like this drain plug is leaking. So it is overdue for an oil change according to the sticker. Although the oil looks like it's been changed, we're going to ask the customer and see what they say and give them a heads up. Also, the front struts. Let me show you this. Decided to let it down a little bit just to make life easier. But on the front struts, you can see the inner protective booties coming apart. Now, yes, you can get replacement boots, but with the mileage, what's the point? For all the labor involved in just changing those boots, you may as well put a set of struts in it. It's already got 160,000 miles on them. Why would you just put boots in there? It's not worth the money. So we're just going to tell the customer about it, see what they think about it, see if they want to actually do anything. But even on this side too, doesn't look like they're leaking, but I'd be willing to bet they're worn out. All right, it's a decision for the customer. So we're gonna write this up, give the customer a call, and see what they want to do. Okay, so on the Mazda, the customer actually wants to do the struts. So they must notice the ride is obviously poor. So we're gonna be doing the struts, oil change, tire rotation, and the belts. So it actually has two belts. There's a water pump belt that you can't see from up top here. But when I have the wheels off and I'll get into it from the side, it's just much easier. So we're gonna start with the struts. So underneath the hood here, see, this is how this was. I'm gonna see if I can't straighten it out. If not, whatever. We're gonna take the top mount bolts out, and then we're gonna put it up in the air and pull the wheels off and stuff. All right, so let's get started with that. Those should be 14s. Let me go get some tools. All right, so simple enough. Up underneath the hood here. Crack them all free. And I'm only going to show you one side. The other side is exactly the same. Now, after you get the bolts off, or nuts off, whatever actually retains the top, usually it's nuts. Very rare that I actually see bolts. I usually put them down low where I can reach them later. And I'll explain that later on as we go, because we're going to want to install this from underneath and then catch the nuts. But I'll show you when we go to do that. All right, so up in the air here, we're going to take the end link off. Grab a wire brush, and as best you can, try to clean up the threads. A lot of times, if I had one that's fully exposed, I'll actually cut off with a Sawzall or a whiz wheel or something, cut off the majority of the threads. This one's kind of behind and inside this bracket here, so it'd be difficult to get into. But I'll usually do that, cut it off, this way you don't have to go across all the rusted threads to get the darn thing out. So just like that to clean it up. And the reason for that too is because you don't want to take the nut and drive it over top all of the rust and stuff like that, because all you're doing is impacting it into the threads and just makes your life look more difficult. Now, yes, this does have an Allen key or hex head internal on that end. You know how much of a pain in the neck it is to try to turn that, and that a lot of times you'll strip that out because of the rust. So I don't even bother. But I'll take vice grips, needle nose on the inside. And yes, there is a difference between vice grip and others. I have found vice grips to be the best. As you see, these actually say vice grip on them. The Matco ones are vice grips. I do have those also, but they are made by Vice Grip. Irwin is the company. Now, trying to get this thing to sit right is another story. Okay. Now, hopefully this thing will unblast cleanly. Push it to the side a little bit. Maybe you can see it that way. No, it's spinning. No. I'm trying to get it to fit. See, it's not happy. Sometimes you wind up having to destroy the end link if it has enough rust on it. It's getting there. All right. Yeah, this is not happy one bit. So now what I'm going to try to do now that it's actually moved out See that? And I got some room. I'm going to see if I can't grab the flange that's on the back side with the vice grips, grab it better, because I couldn't grab it before. As you can see, I am fighting with this. Yeah, this is just not cooperating one bit. Let me grab larger vice grips now that I have a gap in there. Maybe they'll grab it. Hang on. All right, let's try with larger vice grips. Now, some people say, oh, just, heat the end up in that. The problem with doing that is the actual link itself has like a Teflon insert or a hard plastic insert. And if you heat it up, I have found many times it'll actually destroy it. Ugh. Okay. I'm just trying to avoid that. That's all. And as you see, this is just fighting me. Getting there. Just not happy about getting there. And I still may wind up having to do the end link after all. Let me go in a little bit. And it did. It broke the sway bar end link. Yeah. And that's what I was afraid was going to happen, but what are you going to do? And in case you guys are wondering, let's just see if this will do it. See how easy that broke? So, we're just going to be putting a set of sway bar end links on this as well. That one's easy because all I got to do is cut that off with a whiz wheel now. Alright, so next up, we'll take the brake hose off. And you got to get this clip out of here. Sometimes these can be tricky. Sometimes they come right out. Sometimes you destroy them in the process. Like I said earlier, this is an up north vehicle from what I can tell. At least I think I said that earlier. And the hose is out of the way. Now we're going to get this ABS line out of the way. Just like that. And then next we're going to take the nuts off these lower bolts here. There's two nuts. And I sprayed everything up with WD. Okay, that one's turning. I got to get a wrench for that. Hang on a second. All right, so we're just going to hold that in. So that comes out. So now the bolt comes out. Reasonably easy. So now the other bolt, which didn't spin, hopefully it comes right out. Just going to put a socket on the other side. And there the bolt is out. So now, let me back up a bit. And now sometimes you got to finagle with these things a bit. Get them in the right position. And there we go. The strut itself is out. So let's get the new strut and put that in place. And then I'll explain to you why I said about keeping the nuts down low. Or bolts, depending on your setup. Let me get out the new ones. Well, actually, instead of putting a strut on right now, I'm going to do the belts, because with it out of the way, maybe it'll assist me a little bit. So I got to take this side cover off. Let me get this side cover off. It should just be several push pins, and then it should come out. And with the side cover out of the way, Look how bad that belt is. There is nothing left to it. All right, unfortunately, trying to film me in here, trying to get this thing out is gonna be a nightmare. The tensioner's right there. Yeah, there's really no good way for me to film this with the equipment I got. I received GoPros, and I gotta learn how to use those. So, but that'll be coming up hopefully soon. But yeah, we're gonna get there. And let me get these belts off. This is actually the worst belt I've ever seen that wasn't broken. Check that out. There's sections with almost no ribbing to it. That's bad. All right, the other belt on here is what they call a stretch belt. I can't stand stretch belts, but I'm not the manufacturer. So the belt is stretched in place to get on there. So easiest way to get them off is cut them, especially when you're replacing them. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna cut it and go from there. Oh, and before I forget, the tensioner was actually all the way at the end of its adjustment. Basically the position it's in right now is where it was with that belt on there. So the tensioner couldn't go any further. So just kind of interesting. That belt is that far stretched out. So the belt is cut and off. Now to put on a stretch belt, you actually need a special tool. Sometimes you can walk it on, but usually they're just so darn short you can't. It's gonna be near impossible for me to show you on this because it's so tight in here, dealing with the suspension, the cradle, the frame, everything else in the way. Once I get a vehicle that's actually open in the front and I can show you with the tool, then I'll be able to actually show you how to use it. Let me get this belt on, then I'll show you what the tool is because it's all the way over my toolbox. So this is the tool that you need, or at least this is one that I have, and I picked this up years and years and years ago when stretch belts first came out. Snap-on offered this, and I happened to be working on a Subaru, and that's when I needed it. So in the kit, they have two different tools in here. One says remove. Well, it's actually upside down. One says install and one says remove. Obviously the remove one is pretty darn clean because I hardly ever remove them without replacing them. It does happen, just not super common. What you have to do, and like I said, I'm not going to be able to show you this because it's just going to be way too difficult for me to get in there. What you do is you place this on the pulley like this, and it walks the belt in as you rotate it. Actually, it'll walk the belt in as you rotate it, because the belt is going to start to the outside, and then this groove right here will help walk it in place. Let me see if I can't possibly show you I'm going to do this. I don't know if I can though, but like, where am I going to put you? Let me see if I can't figure something out. Hang on. All right, let me try this. Now at the other end where it goes around the water pump, you want to catch it around the water pump first. So it's around the water pump. Now you got to take the tool. I know this is going to be like super difficult to watch, but and there's a groove that'll catch into that pulley. Now, you're going to take a ratchet on the crank, and you're going to start to rotate it on. Now you got to pay attention because the top of the belt up there, you got to make sure it stays on the pulley because it's so far off that it could walk off if you're not paying attention. It's a real trick. And like I said, you guys being in the way doesn't help. Okay, so the top actually caught. However, it's starting to walk off the pulley. Can you see that? it walked off the pulley. Hold on. I have this little thing. See that, how it walked off the pulley? So now I gotta go backwards and I gotta keep manipulating this thing in place. It's a real pain in the neck. I'm not a fan of these stretch belts, but whatever. These things are such a pain in the neck. Anyway, it's on. But basically what you got to do is you got to walk it back and forth, and you got to hold tension on the belt as you're doing it. It's really just a pain in the neck, but I finally got it. It's a lot of work just to get these on, especially on these because it's so darn tight. I wish I could have filmed it, but I just have no way to do it. All right, let me throw the other belt on there, and we can put the shield back in place, and then we can get back to the strut. Oh, just for grins and giggles, note the position of the tensioner right now. That's the same position it was in with the worn out belt on there. Now with the new belt on, look how much closer it is, like towards the AC compressor. That's the AC compressor. You can see it actually moved roughly about an inch, so that's a big difference, especially on a tensioner. So, all right, but all of that's on, all of that's good. Now I can put the shield back on, and let's get the strut in. Now verify you have the right struts, which I already did, and verify which is which side. Now replacement struts, if you buy a complete unit like this, they come with this label on top. Take the label off. That drives me insane when a car comes in and I see the label still there and somebody just stuffed a strut up in place. It's like, you're that lazy you can't take the label off? Come on. Ugh, you can tell it aggravates me. So we're going to take that label off and we're going to stick this strut up in place. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the camera back a ways so hopefully you can see everything that I'm doing. And you'll understand the reason for putting the nuts on the lift or keeping them down low. Let me show you. All right. So I'm going to put you back here. Actually, you know what? I got microphones. And I think I figured out the microphone issue. I'm not quite positive. We're going to find out. But I'm going to use a microphone, and hopefully, if you guys see a difference, just let me know in the comments. But I think I figured out why I was having an issue where you'd only hear it on one side. But I think I did. Okay, let's switch back. All right, let me get my microphone so we can hook that up. All right, so I'm just pulling that label off of the strut. Even if you leave a little piece of paper on there, it's not a big deal. But just take them off. Just don't be a slob. Now, one thing I do is, with the strut, I take the factory nuts. I prefer to use the factory nuts. The reason being is, to me, it looks like a cleaner job. I don't like the look of the aftermarket nuts usually. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stick the strut in place and we're going to pop it up through the top. I know you can't see me, but I'm going to pop it through the top. There, I caught one nut, so now it's holding. I'm going to catch the remaining two. And there you go. And that's my reason for keeping the nuts down low, because I'm going to let the car down low. Now, yeah, you could have stuck them under a hood and I could have reached them, but I just do that just in case. Just makes my life easier because I know exactly where they are. All right, let's put this up in the air and let's finish this. All right, so now one thing you want to be mindful of is when you take stuff like this down, you can overextend the inner joint on the axle and actually pop the inner joint apart. So just be mindful of that. So what we're going to do is lift this up, align your bolts, and sometimes it can be a little difficult. Whatever bolt is the easiest one to catch, that's the one you start with. All right, that's good. And I thought I had a hammer here. Oh, I got one over here. It's in the next bay over. No, it's not going to want to screw in that way. So we're going to zip it in with the gun. It should go in, I hope. Would help if I got the right size socket now, wouldn't it? All right. So I'm happy with that. like that. Put a dribble of WD on there, just like that. Now, if you don't have an impact, just get them nice and tight. Yeah, so we're still waiting for the end link, or end links, because I'm going to do both of them, because I guarantee you the other side's going to break too. So, this retainer here actually broke. Not a big deal, honestly, because it's retained over here, so you're broken on both sides. So now next will be, oops, put the clip in. So we're going to get the line in and centered. Then we're going to drop the clip in place. We're going to use this weird hammer that I have here. See, this little hammer comes in pretty handy for stuff like this. Okay, so this side is pretty much done. Obviously, I got to tighten the tops, but I'm not going to worry about that just yet. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the other side. I'm not going to video that because it's the exact same job as this side. And then hopefully we'll have the end links here soon. All right, let me get this done, and then we'll tighten up the tops, do the oil change, rotate tires, stuff like that. Now, one quick thing I want to show you with this side. I mean, yeah, we're not going to fight with trying to take that nut off, but usually, doesn't work all the time, but usually you can get a pry bar in here, see that, and just pop it out. This way, especially since I'm replacing it, this one was ready to break on the bottom anyway. But that just makes your life that much easier. So, this way I don't have to worry about that. All right, let me do this side. All right, the other strut is in. I'm rotating the tires right now, and I'm going to let it down, tighten the tops of the struts, and then start it up, let it warm up, and then change the oil. So I'm rotating the tires now, and I want to show you something. And it's something that you need to consider if you work in a shop or something else. I've seen too many people do this in the past. I've seen this happen way too many times. Let me show you what not to do. All right, so I got the wheel here in the back. It's already been rotated from the front. Actually, let me put you here instead. What you don't want to do is this. Don't take your lug nuts and screw them all the way down and center it, and then tighten the lugs by hand. Don't do this. Okay? I'm only going to do two like this. But I've seen people do this, and they'll do all of them. You know, get the wheel centered and tighten it. It sounds like a great idea, doesn't it? It's not. And why is that? Why is that not a great idea? Okay. Especially in a shop setting where you have multiple mechanics. I've seen people do this. They get taken away for whatever reason to do something else. They come back. They forget that they didn't tighten the wheel. Car goes down the road. Now the wheel is not loose. Hang on one second, I got somebody yelling across the shop at me. I forgot where I left off because I got interrupted there. Anyway, I've seen too many people do this, and they tighten it down, they get called away for whatever reason. Or something happens to them. They have an emergency, they have to leave. Somebody else goes on the car. Somebody in the office says, oh, well, the wheels are on the car, they let it down, they pull it out. Or the person let the car down, got called away before they torqued the wheels. Seen that happen too. But this mostly applies to this. If you leave the lug nuts loose, if you go to back out, you should hear the wheels doing clunk, 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 clunk like this and be like, oh, the wheels are loose. Usually, not all the time. But when you do this, the car go down the road for a day or so before the wheel falls off. Trust me, I've seen it more times than I can count. So Leaving it like this is not a great idea. However, see, like right now, let me back up a little bit more. Right now, the wheel is not loose. There's nothing. So if you're going to drive down the road, it's not going to, make any noise. But if you leave all the lugs loose before you snug them down, and as you know, I'm going to snug them down with a gun and then torque them later once it's on the ground. But now, you have a wheel that flops around, even with all the lug nuts on. So now you got all the lug nuts on, they're not going to go anywhere, but the wheel is loose. So at least this way, somebody goes to back it out of the shop, if something happens, somebody backs it out of the shop, they're going to hear that and immediately stop before giving it to a customer. So it's just something to think about, because like I said, I've seen it more times than I can count. You wouldn't think so, but it's true. I have seen it numerous times. So, all right, let me get this snug down. This way I can torque them once it's on the ground. So back down on the ground, at least the rear is. I don't know why I didn't just do that on the other side while I was there, but I didn't. I was probably thinking about doing it with a hand ratchet, that's why. Okay. So I'm actually going to start it up and let it run for a little while and then change the oil. Okay, so it got to be about 6 hours later, and we got fed up because they were the store across the street. I could take a rock and actually throw it across the street and hit the building. They're saying, oh, it's coming from another warehouse and we're just having problems getting the delivery. Well, why don't you tell us this before? 6 hours later? Called O'Reilly's, here it is. We're going to have to revisit our relationship with Advanced because this has happened many times. We've been promised parts. We called them 3 hours ago and they promised us it's going to be here in 15 minutes. Okay, that was 3 hours ago. Anyway, all right, let's get these installed. All right, so we're pulling into Mexico here in a second, and it runs and drives perfectly fine. It runs and drives great. It's smooth. Now, the reason I'm mentioning that it's, drives straight and that steering wheel's perfectly straight is I'm sure some of you will say, oh, what about a wheel alignment? Well, here's the thing. The tires are wearing perfectly fine. There's no issue there. The struts being replaced on this design vehicle, the adjustments, there's no adjustment. There's no adjustment at the top of the strut, like a camber caster plate would give you on certain cars. There's no adjustment at the bottom where the two bolts go in to hold it to the knuckle. A lot of cars do have an adjustment there. This does not. There is no adjustment there. So basically it's right back to square one where it was. If this thing would require an adjustment there, you'd have to get specialty hardware offset bolts is what you would have to get. Basically it looks like a bicycle crank, the pedal crank. It looks something like that, but it's in a bolt. That's what you would have to do, something along those lines. Or even ream out the strut bolt holes. But everything's perfectly centered. Basically, you couldn't do anything to it. So that's the reason that we're not going to do an alignment, because there was no complaint of tire wear issues, and the car goes, like I said, perfectly straight. Well, let me just cross into the other section here. Okay. Always got to make sure there's no cars coming. Well, let me get to a point where I can actually show you here. But here, coming through the parking lot, if you look, the steering wheel is perfectly straight, and I'm going perfectly straight. So on the road, it's absolutely perfect. No worries there. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm happy with this repair. Not happy with what the parts store did with us, or did to us, I should say, but it is what it is. All right, guys, let me cross back over into the States, and hopefully you got something out of that video. If you did, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, guys, have a great day. Keep wrenching.